My name is Joseph McGill, and I am field officer for the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and I'm also a history consultant at Magnolia Plantation in Charleston, South Carolina. And for the past 2 years, I've embarked on what is known as the Slave Dwelling Project, and that is an attempt to bring attention to places like this. The slave dwelling here at the Price House. For so long, we've been visiting places like mansions and plantations, but there's been very little attention paid to the outbuildings, the slave dwellings. And this is my attempt to bring attention to these places and associate the history of the people who actually inhabited the slave dwellings, because they have a story to tell also. And I highlight places like the Price House because they have done the right thing to make sure places like this still exist. And I have been spending the nights in places like this, 28 to date.
Well, this is a double pen slave cabin, called a double pen slave cabin because you would have had two families. There are two sides, kind of two spaces. A family would have lived in each space. I guess we, in modern terminology, call it almost like a duplex. But it was moved here, double pen slave cabin moved here in 2005 from Newberry County.
Folks here have done a great thing with the publicity, and bringing school kids here was great also. I interacted with school kids inside the place, so that meant a lot to me, and it appeared it meant a lot to them also. How's everyone?
Good.
Good. Like rice? Yeah? Well, they grew a lot of that rice here, right here in the state of South Carolina. In fact, a lot of the slaves that were brought to this state were brought here just because of their knowledge of growing rice. So they brought them here for that. But now come the year 1860, the state of South Carolina leaves the Union, and when the state of South Carolina leaves the Union, of course, a lot of other states, southern states, leave the Union. Because, of course, Abraham Lincoln has been elected, and a lot feel that if indeed, when Abraham Lincoln should take office, that institution of slavery was going to come to an end. And they knew that with the election of Mr. Lincoln, of course, that was their last straw. so they seceded from the Union. On April 12th of 1861 at 4:30 a.m., the first shot of the Civil War was fired on to Fort Sumter. The day after, our President Abraham Lincoln put out a call for 75,000 United States soldiers to put down this rebellion that he thought would last anywhere from 3 to 6 months. How long did the Civil War last?
4 years.
4 years. This structure here in particular represents where in 1860, 4 million people were enslaved in these United States. 4 million people were enslaved in these United States. In fact, in the state of South Carolina, the population of South Carolina in the year 1860 was approximately 703,000 people. 703,000 people. Of those 703,000 people, over 402,000 of them were enslaved. So the majority population of this state in the year 1860 were slaves. If over 402,000 people in this state were enslaved, where did they live? In places like this. Where we're sitting here right now. They lived in places just like this. So the question is, why is it that a lot of places like this don't exist anymore? Instead of getting mad that these places don't exist, I said, well, let me find the ones that do exist and bring as much attention to these places as I possibly can. And the way I do that is, tonight, I'm going to be sleeping right here in front of this fireplace and kind of taking it all in. The Price House and all who are involved with places like this put the resources in and the time in to preserve and save places like this. It means a lot to me because it's saving a place that my ancestors lived. It's saving a place that tells the stories of my ancestors.